This is Community Forum, a community service of CAN TV. I'm your host, Juan Carlos Hernandez. Today, our guests are from SGA Youth and Family Services. They're here to talk about their work with a wide range of people and in two main areas of the city, Brighton Park and Roseland. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out. Let's start off by talking about each of you individually and what brought you to SGA and your role there. Erin Starkey, please.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for having me. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I initially came to SGA to do school-based services in Roseland, focusing on counseling, individual and group work with students. Over my time at SGA, I've had the opportunity to do a variety of different roles, community organizing, program development, program management, and I currently am supervising a program that takes place in several Chicago public schools across the city.
Okay, great. And Zenobia Williams.
Yes.
Welcome. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting us.
Oh, no, great. My pleasure.
Yes, I came to SGA with 14 years of prior social service experience. Started with SGA in '09, and it's a wonderful place. I've just enjoyed everything about it, enjoyed the people that I work with, and the communities that we serve. It's an awesome place to be.
No, I do want to touch a bit on what we were talking about previously. You had worked in the corporate world for a while, right?
Absolutely. I started out in the corporate arena and found out that I really didn't, the money was good, but I really didn't like it. It wasn't as fulfilling as I would have liked it to be. And landed a job in social services and loved it. And I'm here. I've been here ever since. More than 15 years now.
That's great. If you're still there and you're enjoying it, what better?
Yes, absolutely.
Now let's talk about these two areas where, main areas of the city where SGA does its work, Brighton Park and Roseland. Where do you work specifically?
I'm in the Roseland community, far south. Well, I work with a lot of schools throughout the Chicagoland area,
Okay.
but I'm primarily in the Roseland community.
Okay. And you, Erin?
Yes, I currently have schools that are in the Brighton Park community.
Okay.
As an agency, we do service citywide, and like I mentioned before, we have I've had opportunities to work in Roseland, absolutely, and the Brighton Park community as well.
Okay, now let's talk about those communities. There are two communities, when you hear them mentioned in the news, unfortunately, it's often bad news. Tell me about some of the issues and problems and challenges that we see in Brighton Park and in Roseland.
Well, I can say honestly that the Roseland community is high poverty and a high crime area. When I started in the Roseland community in 2009, the second week after I started, the unfortunate and untimely death of Darian Albert had took place.
Oh, wow.
Right in the very school, near the school where I was working.
Now, Darian Albert, he was the gentleman that was attacked, right, on his way home from school. And
absolutely.
it made not just national news, but international news, right? I think even Attorney General Eric Holder made a stop in Chicago for that.
Yes.
Right. And tell me more about some of the issues you're facing there, please.
Well, some of the issues I find is that, well, first things first, is the food desert. So students don't have, or their families don't have an opportunity to get healthy meals, and just there's no activities around where, like, say, maybe a health club or a gym or some place where they can go and feel safe. So SGA made it a point to work with the school to open it up, to offer it as a safe haven for students. And most times our students are there until 7 o'clock at night. We have to tell them, you have to go home now.
Well, that speaks highly of your work then.
Thank you, thank you. But, we're very intentional about keeping it safe and empowering families and bringing information and resources to the community for the parents and the students.
I'm sure many feel that it's a great blessing to have you there.
Well, thank you.
Tell us about Brighton Park and some of the issues, similar issues, different issues.
Sure. I think that many of the communities that we serve, we do find are under-resourced. As Zenobia was mentioning, you know, what we find, regardless of the community, is that there is the ability to help families and to help students be their best selves. So that's universal. I think whatever community you go into, we do find that there is a need for resources, there's a need for facilities, there's a need for increased safety so that people can become and strive and thrive to be their best selves, so that students can have opportunities. But what is universal is that in each of these communities, the students and the families are empowered, have belief, have the strengths, have the tools, if they are given the opportunities to really thrive and achieve.
So there, although there are challenges, there is this great hunger and desire to grow.
Absolutely.
Yes, definitely.
And although I'm saying Roseland and Brighton Park,
Sure.
you've made clear that you don't just work in those communities; that your work extends beyond those areas.
Sure.
Okay. Now let's get specifically into the programs you were working through and what you do through them, because I know SGA, the focus is, as I have in my notes here, cradle to career.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Tell me how that functions. Let's start with you, Zenobia, please.
Okay, sure. SGA, we found that we had a mentoring program early on when we started working within the schools, and we found that we provided an opportunity for high school students to go to elementary schools, mentor and tutor those students.
Oh, wow.
And it really, really helped. It helped to kind of help them transition into high school, to help them, realize what they should expect, and just act as big brothers and big sisters to those younger students. Then we found that it worked so well that we try another tier. And so this year we offered some college students an opportunity to come in and work with high school students, who in turn work with the grammar school students. So we had a complete pipeline of services that we provided for them, because a lot of the students, the high school students, we found didn't have an opportunity, and no one in their families. They will be the first ones in their family to actually attend college or even think about going to college. So this offered them an opportunity to find out what they should expect, and what they should do to prepare themselves.
So what happens during this? Is there a very a schedule that these mentors follow? Is there, do they have to meet certain requirements during the mentoring session or something like that?
Absolutely. So one thing that we offered was an anti-bullying and anti-violence curriculum that the mentors actually studied together, and then they went to the grammar schools and they actually had the same type of program with them. So it was very intentional with, because violence was so prevalent in that community, that they offer some anti-violence and anti-bullying.
So this is for students from grade school through
6th, 7th, and 8th grade through college.
Through college. And you brought in college students. How did you bring them in? You went out to the colleges, and how did these college students respond to this opportunity?
We did. We went out to the colleges. We talked to them about the opportunity. We interviewed them, held interviews. We were able to provide a stipend for them, which kind of helped them too, along the way.
Hungry college students.
The college students, absolutely. And they loved it. They were excited about it, and it showed. They did a wonderful job. We were very excited. This was the first time. This was a pilot. We tried it for the first time, and it was an overwhelming success.
So if any colleges or universities would be interested in maybe participating with you on this, they could send an email or make a phone call?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we'd also contact them. We'd go to their student services department and reach out to them and just find out maybe they wanted to be teachers themselves, or they were studying, or maybe social service career, looking for that themselves, and definitely chose those students who were interested in doing that kind of work.
Before we move forward, and I certainly want to get to your main work right now, do you have any stories of a college student or one of the students where there was this great bond that was formed, and and you saw very plainly that there was the college student or whatever student was making a huge impact.
Absolutely. When you said that a student that came to mind was a young teen parent, she missed a lot of school because she was ill and had issues with babysitting and that kind of thing. So she was down considerable amount of credits to graduate. And when she found out about our program, the college students helped her with enrolling into a correspondence course as well as a credit recovery program, and they tutored her every step of the way.
Wow.
She's graduated and she is enrolled, and she will be attending Southern Illinois University in this fall. Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite a story of hope and encouragement.
Thank you.
Wow. So, yes, Erin, tell us about your main area of work and what you do.
Sure, absolutely. So Zenobia was speaking with the 6th through high school age range, and in our program at SGA, we are actually on the other end of the spectrum. So let's start a little earlier. One of our main programs in Brighton Park is early childhood. So we begin as an agency to work with students from that cradle, literally, right, all the way to the career, to college, to get into the career. And right now, one of our really successful programs is a mentoring program working with students. They start in 1st grade, and we work with students in 1st through 7th grade, and we follow them actually for 2 years. So
2 years.
2 years. So we have students next year, this coming school year, that will be in 2nd and 8th grade. And they are assigned a mentor, and that mentor is somebody that has been trained on an evidence-based curriculum. They've had a lot of extensive additional training, knowing that some of our students have needs outside of the home that lead to trauma. We know that we were speaking to the violence and some of the things in our communities, and so all of our staff have been trained not only in the curriculum, but also in trauma-informed services so that we can best support that student. So it's a really successful mentoring program that we're seeing there.
For 1st graders?
Yeah, so some 1st graders through all the way through 8th grade.
Wow, so how does, I'm curious, I'm sure parents or viewers must ask themselves, how does mentoring work for a child of that age?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it does. It looks very different from a student that's a little older, a little further in their career in school. We really work on engaging the student in school. We work very closely with the parents, so we know that we have to empower students, but as an agency, SGA really also is committed to working with parents. In this particular program, staff have ongoing communication with parents about their students' success in class. They want to make sure that the staff are conscious and, the staff are working with the parent to make sure that they understand the importance of getting their child to school. We know at that age, a 1st grader may or may not have the ability to say, hey mom, I want to make sure I'm in school today, right? They might be a little bit more dependent on their parents. And so the mentoring with a student at that age really also involves the parents and making sure that the parent has what they need to make sure that their student's most successful and supported in school.
Wow, and how do parents respond when you say, well, you need to maybe improve or make some changes?
Absolutely.
Because I'm sure that's part of the process.
Absolutely. That's a really good question. I think that it's really important and we have staff that recognize that parents are the best experts on their students, right? So we may have some of those tools because we may have had the formal education, but at the end of the day, that's your child and you know them best. And so we really work with the parents to find out what are their goals for their child? What do they know about their child that, chances are if a student is acting out in school, they probably have somewhat similar behaviors going on at home. And so we ask parents, have you recognized those behaviors? If the student is late to school, what's keeping you from getting them there? Is it transportation? Okay, we can work on that. Is it a bus card? We got you. Is it, doctor's appointments? Sometimes it's as simple as helping a parent remember that we can ask to make appointments later in the day, or that we can help get them to school. That it's really recognized, I think, by all of our staff that parents are those experts and that parents, do want what's best for their child, and that there may just simply be barriers that are keeping them from getting to help that student be successful.
Other challenges that, that you're helping respond to? Because you mentioned earlier that a lot of these areas don't have the resources that others. So before I get into talking about the other programs you have, What nonprofits work with you, or have you worked with as a part of this network of support?
Sure, maybe talking a little bit about some of our after-school programs. We partner with many other organizations.
Yeah, I want to say that when we first started working in the Roseland community, we found that there were a lot of not-for-profit agencies, and there was a wealth of resources and information that was there. But it seems as though everyone was on their own separate island, you know, and everyone was doing their own thing. And SGA came in and intentionally gathered everyone together and said, hey, we can do this as a group. SGA doesn't claim to do it all.
Right.
So we can rely on you to do this, and maybe you can do that. And the community was a little reluctant at first because they thought, well, wait a minute, you know, what are they doing? But once they realized that we were there for the good of the community and that we were about change and we were there to help them to grow, they came to us in droves. We held monthly meetings, and Erin can tell you that they were there and willing, and you know, whatever we can do to help, you know, organizations like Kids Off the Block, Demoiselle to Femme, just you know, the community organization,
Youth Peace Center.
the Youth Peace Center, and all of those agencies that were there, you know.
Kind of working they were kind of working on their own issue and separate from others, but you
SGA kind of bridged that gap and just kind of brought all of them together so that, you know, we're all on the same mission. We all have the same goals. What can we do to help each other?
Okay. And in that same mission, tell me about the other programs that SGA carries out in these communities. Zenobia, tell me about some of them.
The first things first, I have to talk about the after-school programs,
which is huge.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
needs to be huge.
Yeah. So all of the out-of-school time, we service 12 schools within the Chicagoland area.
Wow.
Roseland just happens to be one of them, but we provide all of the after-school programs. When I first started in Roseland, it was about 1,100 kids in the building, and they didn't have anything to do after school.
If
they weren't in sports, yeah, if they weren't in sports, they would just go home. And we found that students that don't have anything to do after school can get into a lot of mischief. So we thought, okay, wait a minute, what will we do? We created 44 after-school programs for students to attend, anywhere from dance to music to, I mean, you name it. Theater, we brought it all.
Wow.
And the kids absolutely love it. We were practically about 80% covered with the students that attended after-school programs.
Wow. So 80% of the students from these particular schools would go to these after-school programs?
Absolutely.
Wow. That's impressive.
Thank you.
And theater, you said art, what else?
Music, dance, mentoring, tutoring, credit recovery for students who weren't on track to graduate or maybe progress to the next grade level. Programs specifically for freshmen, because we know if they kind of fall behind during that first year, it's difficult to catch up. So
that's huge.
Yeah. Freshman program called Freshmen on Track. We tried to get the students even before they started school so that they would become acclimated to studying and all of the other things, and finding what areas they needed help in most, and tried to help them out as much as we could.
So who do you bring in for these classes? Artists, actors, people
Well, we brought in people from the community.
From the community?
Yes, absolutely. So people they already knew. That, and we put them all in the same building.
Wow.
So it worked really well.
Oh, that is great, and it's helping unite people around the most important resources, which is children,
Yes.
and youth. Erin, tell me about some of the other programs that SGA carries out, please.
Sure. So we have different programs that take place in the schools in addition to some of our after-school programs. One of our largest service areas is providing counseling, so school-based counseling. We know that many of the schools that we service in Roseland and Brighton Park and in other parts of the community are underserved in the sense of not having mental health professionals to provide
And there have been so many
services for
cutbacks.
students. Absolutely, absolutely. And so SGA has been very committed to filling in those gaps where those cutbacks have occurred in schools and to come in and to provide those services. I mentioned trauma-informed services taking place in individual settings and in group settings for students and their families.
Give me an example of that.
Sure. So we have worked very closely with a couple of schools around the community to provide a curriculum-based, evidence-based program where students come in and are either referred by their families, referred by teachers, referred by maybe a self-referral, although that doesn't always happen, but occasionally. Sometimes students know, right, when they need help, and we absolutely want to meet that need. And so they would meet in a group setting and do different activities surrounding particular issues, whether it be those that have experienced a traumatic event such as a shooting or violence or the loss of a loved one. And so the students have an opportunity to share with one another, so there's peer learning, right, from one another about how they've overcome those circumstances. And then there's also a trained counselor that's able to guide them through different activities to help, eventually find growth in that area. Although we know that it's a lifelong journey for students that have experienced such things. However, in these groups and in the individual time with the counselor, they're given tools to how to be successful.
That's so crucial, especially like I said, in a time where government agencies have just made such huge cutbacks.
Sure.
And for you to step in and help offer that is I think I'm sure making a huge impact. Now, there's one program in particular I do want to talk about that we haven't mentioned, the Second Chance and Juvenile Justice Services.
Sure.
Tell me about that, because I recently read a book by Bishop Desmond Tutu, and I was so moved by his whole view on justice and how justice should be carried out. And I was thinking, wow, we need more of that philosophy here. And it seems that this carries some of those ideas at least. Zenobia, please.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about peer circles and peer jury. We brought those programs in because we kind of felt that if students had an opportunity to hear from their peers or have their peers talk to them about, a misconduct or whatever, and we found that was very successful. The peace circles were phenomenal in giving them an opportunity to just sit down and talk their issues out, whether it be with a teacher, parent, another student, or whoever. Just taught them, that it's okay to talk about it. And maybe if you talk about it and have a chance to, you'll have a chance to iron those issues out. So that was a huge success, and we made sure that we offer those peer circles in all of the school locations.
Peer circles, you grab children or
The
teens?
room was open. There was a room dedicated solely for peer circles, and if they wanted to come in to talk about issues, it was open for them. They could make an appointment themselves, or they could just go in and talk, and a lot of times it was guided by a person to kind of oversee it and make sure that they were actually working on the issues, but for the most part it was open to any student or parent or faculty that wanted to use the rooms.
So just to understand how it works, let's say I'm a student and I want to work something out, or I have an issue with another student, or something happened, I make an appointment, and then whoever's in charge of the peace circle gathers the students?
Yes.
And then you talk it out, or what if there's like a fight and you want to use the peace room?
We could go right in. You didn't have to, if something happened, that was the place to go. A lot of times students were, if there was a fight, they were told they had to go home. They were suspended.
Right.
That defeated the entire purpose. You're going home and then you're missing school.
Right.
You're not ironing out any issues. We found that they took the issues home with them.
Right.
So now, you have a community that's in an uproar about something that could have been handled in school. As soon as there's a fight or any type of disagreement with anyone, they would go right into the peace room and try to iron it out before it had to go home.
That's restorative justice, right? It's not
Absolutely.
punitive. It's not this punishment like you misbehave or you have a conflict. We're going to just expel you or suspend you. You're out of here.
No, we tried to eliminate that as much as possible. It was our goal to keep a child in school.
Mm-hmm. And this ties in with juvenile justice services.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have one program in particular that actually helps deter students or young people from getting wrapped up into the juvenile justice system. And so we actually have an opportunity at the point at which a student, a young person is arrested, we are contacted, so SGA is contacted, and we have staff on site at the center to keep them from going into what we know can be, unfortunately, a long-standing place for students and young people once they end up in the juvenile justice system. We actually have an opportunity to intervene, and they get assigned a caseworker that works with them closely, that does home visits, that is also connected to the student's school. And so rather than them getting wrapped up in this school to prison pipeline system that we hear so much about, SGA has an opportunity to change that trajectory for a student, right? With the help of the family and the help of the school and the help of other community resources, we are able to intervene and potentially get that student or that young person on a different track and hopefully to a career or to college, so that they can become a more productive member of society.
Right, and it's helping build the individual.
Absolutely.
It's not just punishing.
Absolutely.
Wow. We're essentially out of time. Thank you so much. It was wonderful to hear about all the work you do, and I wish you luck in your careers and what you're doing for Chicago.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you again. And to you, our audience, thanks for watching. Community Forum is a community service of CAN TV. If your nonprofit organization would like to work with CAN TV, call 312-738-1400 and ask for nonprofit services. Tune into Community Forum for local issues and concerns every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. on CAN TV 21. I'm Juan Carlos Hernandez. Thank you for joining us.